my special guest today is a speaker, author, and sexual assault advocate helping lift up survivors. Over the last 3 decades, she has learned to go through life with forgiveness. I know that's something that so many of us are working on.
Life gives us moments when we have the opportunity to make a choice. And what we choose has the potential to change our lives forever. Join us now for another inspired episode of The Breakthrough. And now, please welcome the creator and host of the show, Jessica Dugas.
Everyone, please welcome my new friend, Sally Lushin, to the show. Sally, thank you so much for being here with me.
You're welcome.
I'm so excited to finally talk to you because I say this often when people come on. We have this initial call to get to know each other, and then it's just like just waiting
Right,
for that day, right?
And I'm going to correct you because my name is Lushin.
Lushin, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm not always
right.
Listen, I have been called everything, and including, you know what bugs me is, so my name is Jessica and people call me Jennifer all the time.
Oh, really?
Because that's similar.
I guess.
So I'm glad we got that. I'm glad we got that out of the way. And thank you so much for letting me know about that. So I would love for you to start us off and tell us something that's bringing you joy in your life right now.
Well, right now I have 4 grandchildren, and as they grow and they start calling me Nana, I'm telling you, I can't even describe how my insides just melt because, I find this the most amazing time in my life is to be able to actually have my grandchildren and enjoy them the way that I get to. So that brings me the most joy.
I love it. And I think it's so fun to have children around you when you might be going through a hard time. They really can lift you up and have a very unique outlook and bring us back to like, would I have reacted this way if I was a child, and because we complicate things as adults sometimes, right?
We do.
We do, for sure. So I'm really excited to talk to you today about your journey. And I know that this is going to be a topic that is going to be difficult for some people to go there because of experiences that we've had in our lives. So I just want to let everybody know as we have this conversation that you are loved and you are supported and that you are not alone in the things that you've gone through. And to be sure that if anything comes up during this episode that has you thinking about different things, to be sure to reach out to somebody. You can reach out to us here at the show, and you can also reach out to a friend, a loved one, and just don't keep things inside. Talk about how you're feeling. And so I just want to put that out there before we get started with our conversation today. So Sally, will you take us back to the period of time in your life when you had something pretty significant happen to you?
Okay. I actually, I was married in 1980. We started having a family. And in 1987, we actually moved back to Indianapolis. And we decided, I had a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. And we decided we were going to buy a property downtown that could be renovated. And we were going to work on this. And this was going to be our family home. And we realized that we couldn't actually live in it for almost a year, and we had to work on the renovations, and I would never do that again. I think once is enough for me. But anyway, we ended up moving into a condo because my husband was a Indianapolis police officer, and so we got to move into a condo in exchange for him doing security for their condos. And so that's where we were living. We had actually just moved into that place. And on October 28th, 1987, regular day, normal day, came home from work. Kids were in bed. I followed them not soon after that. And So we were asleep, and my husband was actually at work. And sometime in the middle of the night, a man broke into our home, and I was beaten and raped. At that time, I was almost 5 months pregnant for my youngest son. And once that happened to me, then my life journey began in a different way that I had no idea. Um, how to go through it, how to get through it. Um, so I like anybody, I actually reported it. They took a rape kit, um, took evidence, they searched for him. And then that was just it. It just kind of died out with that. He was never caught.
Wow.
Um, but then I became, the very confident, brave person that I had been. I completely changed overnight.
Mm.
So,
I'd love to ask you really quickly. So we see a lot of shows like SVU and movies about this sort of thing. Do you find your experience similar to things that we see on TV, or and because I know a lot of times that the people that are victims in these situations, they have, like, it's a blur. Do you remember like details about that? And you don't have to share those with us, but do you ever find yourself like remembering very specific things, or is it blurry to you?
both.
Mm.
I do remember very specific things. There's also a whole lot of time that I've learned that what I need to do is, instead of going back and rehashing and reliving the whole entire thing, that I can talk to my family who was there. They went through it with me, and have them tell me little highlights or little things that I have questions about. And so that's what's been very helpful for me, to not have to go and relive the whole entire situation, but to be able to just find out, this or that, without having to go too deep.
Right. So you said that this whole experience, I mean, I think anybody listening to this story would say, of course, you would come out of this a different person. But tell us a little bit about what made you different. How was your personality before, and sort of how did that shift right after the incident that happened?
Oh, sure. I was very open, very talkative. Would have no problem meeting a stranger, going to the mall, just any kind of things like that. With my children, I didn't have fears. I didn't have fears that were brought on to me that night. And that has a lot to do with the fact that, it's almost like when something like that happens to you, your brain just goes into an area that it's just trying to save you. It's trying to save you from what you're experiencing. And so over the years, between, talking to other people and then just remembering it on my own, I've been able to do that.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I like I said, I think so many people will watch this and say, well, of course things change after something like that. And I think sometimes we hold ourselves to a higher standard of saying, I should be farther along. I should be, and
Right.
making expectations for ourselves. Was that the same with you as well?
It was. And in fact, when I learned about fight, flight, and freeze,
Mm,
which I think a lot of us are familiar with,
right.
um, they don't really talk about freeze, which is what I did. And so to me, I never even wanted to bring it up to anybody, because I felt like I know this sounds crazy, but I felt like I had gotten raped wrong,
Mm,
because everybody else either hit back or they ran away. And that's not what I did. So for a long time, I kept thinking, a lot of women blame themselves for whatever situation they were in. And I didn't have to do that, because I was asleep in my own bed. And so for me, it was like, but why did I freeze like a deer, like a rabbit? Why did I do that? And then the more that I've learned about how my brain responds, and how I really have no control over that, then it helped me to understand that, I was fine. I could let all that go from my mind because it didn't need to be there in the first place.
Right. I think you're so right that we put, we blame ourselves when we go through things of this magnitude, even smaller things. We think, well, I should have done it. Why didn't I do that? Why should have done it this way? And then we, a lot of times as we're going along on our journey, we're comparing ourselves to other people. Well, they fought back, and why didn't I fought back? Or they told and I
Right.
didn't tell, kind of thing. In my experience, I was 4 years old when I was abused, so I didn't know. I spent a lot of time blaming myself and being like, why didn't you tell somebody? Why didn't you say something then? Why are you just now saying something at 16 years old and now nobody believes you, kind of thing. And it really does take so much work to stop placing blame on yourself for doing the best you could in them. Isn't that funny to
Right.
think, how,
It is.
how are we blaming ourselves for doing the best we knew how to do in that moment?
You know, it. I can't explain it. It's just something that we do.
Right.
And just like being able to talk about it, I didn't talk about it for over 25 years. And there was no reason to talk about it. It happened. It was over. So now I don't need to talk about it.
Right.
And as the years went by, I realized that I was only hurting myself by staying silent, because while silence protects the perpetrator, it absolutely makes the victim feel like they have no power, they have no control.
So how has it looked for you over the last several years, many years, since this happened, to not get over it, but to get through it? Like, what does your process look like as you've gone through time?
Well, probably the first thing that I did was completely blocked it out.
Mm,
I mean, I was having a baby, a few months
right.
later. Um, so after I did that, then I had so much anger toward my husband, because I felt like he should have been there for me
Mm,
as a man, as my husband, as a police officer.
right.
And I carried that kind of anger with me through many, many years. And I did when I have three boys, and when they each turned 18, I did tell them my story, and then I didn't want to talk about it anymore.
Mm,
I felt like if I could just not talk about it, it would just go away, you know?
right.
And I also experienced things where somebody might say to me, "You need to stop acting like a victim." And I thought to myself, how can I stop acting like a victim when I was a victim? That
Right.
never made any sense to me.
Right.
And to this day, that is never something that you should ever say to anyone.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of that. But it also, going through that time, I divorced my husband. Um, I started drinking alcohol because once I was single, I met up with single friends, and that's what they did. They went to the
Right.
bars. So I experienced for the first time in my life something that I could put in my body that would make me numb.
Mm,
And I did that for about 4 or 5 years, and lived through it. I don't know how, but I did. And I think it's very common for survivors to either, abuse drugs or abuse alcohol, just
mm.
anything to try to get you to get away from what has happened to you.
Do you found that there anybody in your life that was sort of that would not necessarily say this exactly, but that would say something similar to, well, kind of like, of course, like, you're going to drink because you went through. Was there anybody that was sort of enabling you in that way, or was everybody concerned?
No, they were concerned about me.
Mm,
And I just, if you were concerned about me, then I would remove you from my life.
Right, right.
Because I knew what was best for me, even though I really didn't.
Mm.
So
Right.
that was it's a very dark time for me in my life. I actually told all of my children, uh, apologize to them, for that behavior. And then again, I'm going to apologize, and then I don't want to bring it up again, because I can't just keep apologizing
Right.
for something, that I did. And I think a lot of people beat themselves up, where if they could just say, hey, I'm going to say this, because I truly, genuinely am sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry that that part of my life led me down that road. So now it's better, of course, my relationship with them. And the more I've opened up about it, the more, that they have opened up as well back to me. So,
Right. Right. I think that's such a a wonderful thing to share, because I think a lot of times we say we're sorry, but then we feel like we have to keep making it up to people, and we don't have enough love for ourselves to say, okay, I said I'm sorry, and that is enough.
right,
We feel like
right,
we have to keep doing something or saying something else, right?
right,
Yeah. So
right.
when did you start to really turn things around and say, okay, I've got to pull myself into a different place? Tell us what that looked like for you.
Okay. I actually, I stopped drinking cold turkey myself. I had a friend that had was almost OD'd on alcohol, and
Mm,
so I was there at the emergency room, for that whole week. Unfortunately, they did not experience it because they were in a coma, and then um, they were uh, they just couldn't remember anything.
right.
But I could remember it, and I thought, wow, that big wake up call for me. So I did stop drinking, and after that, one of my sons said to me, "Mom, I've gone through this program. It's life changing. I would love for you to go and just see what it's like." And I'm thinking to myself, it's probably something to do with AA or something like that that had to do with my drinking. But I told him I'd go ahead and go. And so I did, because if you would have asked me before that, how's your life? I would tell you, oh, my life is great. I've come through this. I'm sitting over here. I'm not drinking. Life is great. Everything is good. And so I go into this room, and it was pretty much a hands-on where the first thing that they had us do was to stand up, just find someone and talk to them, tell them your name and what you do, and do it in a different language, like Daffy Duck or Abraham Lincoln, or something like that. And so I'm like, I don't want to do this. And when I got up, the person I was talking to, well, I wasn't talking, but they were talking. I just started crying, and I
Wow.
couldn't stop crying, and I couldn't speak. I kept thinking, this is the simplest thing, to just stand up. And then I thought, wow, I have secluded and isolated myself and called it a life.
Mm,
And so I wanted to leave. I was just like, let's go. And he kept saying, no, please, Mom, please stay, And so we did. And then when we got outside, I was like, no, I am not going through this program. I'm never doing this again. This was like, they made me talk, and I had to talk to strangers.
right.
And he just looked at me dead in the eye, and he said, Mom, do you always want to live this way?
Mm,
And I said, no. Now, I've said no to that question before.
mm,
And this time I said no, and I'm not going to. And what do I have to do to get myself past this?
Right.
And so I did go through this program, and it was quite helpful. Um, the biggest thing it did for me was, first of all, I couldn't hear the word rape. I would never say the word rape.
Mm.
And so they knew that about me. So they would use it as we were going through the program. They would bring it up from time to time, just to watch me act like I just got shot. It was just like,
Right.
oh, no, that word, and it's just a word. I get that,
Mm-hmm.
And so they also had one of the workshops, and it was a long, you actually felt like you were sitting there on the dock. You had a boat. The water was, it was just beautiful. And you take whatever it is inside of you and you put it on that boat and you let it sail away.
Mm.
And I put my ex-husband on that boat and he sailed away. And my life changed after that.
Yeah.
I was totally different, because then I started realizing that maybe I wasn't so angry at him, but I was angry because of the assault,
Right.
because of the violence against me. And so I started then realizing that I needed to do something with my anger and work through that. Uh, there were tools that I had been given over the years, but nothing prepared me for that. Nothing did.
Right.
It's because it's just like an alcoholic. Until you say, I'm done drinking, nobody's going to make that happen for you.
Right. Right.
So as a survivor, once you say, I'm not going to live in fear, I'm not going to let this take me down the road that I don't want to go down anymore. I'm tired. I'm tired of it all. But I felt like I would have to work so much harder and be, so much more involved in therapy and this and that, to get through it. And I didn't. I just simply needed to come to the realization myself that I was angry. I was angry at what had happened to me. And now here we are all these years later, and I don't have any conclusion or any, I don't have justice. In fact, right now for the last 2 years, I've been trying to get the department here to find my rape kit to test it for DNA, because I keep reading about women that 20 years ago, 30 years ago,
Right.
they're now testing their DNA. But unfortunately for our department, they did not handle things the way they do now. Therefore, it's obviously gone.
How does that,
So,
how do you process that? Like, how does that part make you feel? I mean, I know my husband and I will often watch a lot of the crime shows on Netflix, and you'll see people that have been in jail for years and were innocent, and you'll see people who want to go back because the technology's finally caught up, but their stuff wasn't handled properly. Like, how do you process that? What kind of emotions come up for you?
at first, I was very angry and felt like they, um, something that was so intimate for me, they didn't treat it like I would have treated it. And then I was mad because I thought, well, they'll never be able to test it
Right.
now. And because it took them a long time to even find that a crime had been committed against me, I felt like, oh gosh, it's almost like they wiped the whole thing out. Like it didn't ever happen. If I didn't have a police report, or if I didn't have anything like that, then it's like it never happened to me. And I got angry. You go through all the grief, I think, every time you experience something, especially if you've been violated by someone else. The anger and, all the way down to the acceptance. So, yeah, that's exactly how I work through it.
Yeah. So tell us now the difference of when you first went through everything to how do you get through life today, every day? What is your what does your day look like? How do you do it every day to keep going?
Well, I think for me, I kind of split myself off into two people.
Mm,
The one that it happened to and the one that gets through the day. And I try to address each one separately because I need to get through the day
right.
and I need to have a happy life. But yet, part of me cannot ever forget this over here because of things like things that people don't think about. And here's some examples. I had to have a clear shower curtain for many years
Mm,
because I couldn't close my eyes in the shower. I couldn't. When you are invaded in your home, the place that you feel the most safe, and someone takes that away from you, then you don't feel safe anywhere.
mm,
So trying to get through the day, not having the feeling that, I belonged anywhere, you have to separate that from, hey, I'm doing great and I'm gonna make it through it.
right.
I also, for 32 years, I slept with a nightlight. And a year ago, January, I decided that 2019, I was gonna stop sleeping with a nightlight. And I did it. And I've been successful and I haven't gone back.
Mm,
So what you do is you take those little pieces of what you can do, and even if they're just so tiny that people think that's no big deal, it's a big deal to
right.
somebody like me. It's huge.
Yeah. I
So
think it's,
that's kind of how.
go ahead.
Good. I think that's how a lot of people, once they can learn to do that, then it just helps with each and every step along the way. Then.
Mm. I love that idea of celebrating small victories, like, even if they seem like they're not a big deal to other people, that it's something that you can celebrate and little steps that you take along the way. I think that's a huge takeaway for our listeners today, because it's something that I talk about frequently as well. We don't, we keep track of the big milestones. Oh, I
Right.
purchased a house, I had a baby, I got a brand new job. But what about all of the things that led up to those big things along the way, and celebrating those? um is there any big tools or anything that you use today as far as mindset, or things that help you get through the day?
Yes, I have used a lot of essential oils. I use calming blend. I use breathe. Because a lot of times that's all you need is just that fragrance
Yes.
to get your mind to just calm down. So I do that. Um, I also I'm meditating.
Mm,
And again, I had to go to meditation maybe 8 times before I could actually close my eyes while I was in there
right.
to meditate. Because I could go to church and you could say, close your eyes and pray. And I'm not going to do it because
Right.
I need to be alert,
Mhm.
and things like that. Um, so meditation helps me to control my breathing because I do have PTSD and I do have panic attacks,
Mhm.
which are becoming rarer and rarer, which is so good, you know.
Yes.
But I think it's because I then can change my mind to say, it really is okay. It's trust. It's all about trust.
Right.
And a lot of people talk about trusting others, but you really need to trust yourself. And
Mhm.
that's one thing that I think I lost because it was hard to trust myself because it was hard for me to know, how am I going to react this time?
Right.
Am I going to just be smiling and everything's okay? Am I going to burst into tears and everybody's going to be like, what's wrong with her? You don't know. And so you have to build up trust within yourself, just like you do with everyone else.
Right.
So
Right.
those are just a lot of good things that I use. And plus I'm always reading about how your brain, and why. Because, well, I mean, if you can actually medically understand what
Mm,
happens to you during these times, then you stop blaming yourself for, not doing this or doing that, like that, or things like that. So that's been quite helpful for me as well.
I love it. All of those things are so good. One of the questions that I love to ask on the show, and it's so appropriate for this conversation. So you could have two different people that go through a very similar situation, and you'll have one person that perseveres and they push through after it's done and they're living their best life, and you have other people that spiral down and they can't ever pick themselves back up. What do you think makes you someone that keeps pushing forward? What do you feel like is inside of you or even externally that helps you to be the person that not just survives but thrives beyond what happened to you?
I think it's the want. I want it so bad.
Mm,
I want it more than anything. Because I honestly used to wonder about these people who could, within the day, it's like the next day they're like, well, I'm over it and everything's. I thought those people have to be in denial, because there's no way that you could go through that and just be okay.
right.
Well, then I realized that, we all do handle things quite differently. Just like for me, had I been single and didn't have children and wasn't pregnant, my experience, even though it would have been the same experience, but then afterwards, my experience would have been completely different,
Mm,
because I only had myself to worry, and things like that. So I also think that has to do with how people do handle it, because you do tell yourself a lot of things, and you shouldn't listen
right,
to
right.
everything that you do say to yourself. So if you can just maybe get to that point where we all kind of talk to ourselves. So if you're going to talk to yourself, then you have to trust whatever it is that you're saying to yourself that's going to be able to help you to get through this.
Right.
And, we aren't all strong, you
Mm,
know? I mean, some people are just weaker when it comes to emotions, and there's nothing wrong with that.
right.
How you cannot ever tell someone that this is how they need to go through this.
Right.
But you can help them to be able to look at you and say, look, I did this, I am brave. I can use my voice,
Mm,
and how did I get there? Doing things like I'm doing today, where I'm actually talking about it. I
right.
mean, if I could say anything, I would tell people, talk, 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 talk.
Mm,
Because a lot of people, I've met girls that their parents don't believe them, and they do not have any kind of support system. And what happens to those girls? Well, kind of what you're talking about.
right.
Maybe they're one that, they're just not ever going to get strong enough to get on the other side of it, because you just don't have people that believe you,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. So tell us, Sally, how you are using this situation and all these years of experience and growth in between to help other people today.
Well, I became a sexual assault advocate in 2013, and I did that for myself. I actually worked for a company that had nothing to do with this. Um, and that's what allowed me to live my life and pay my bills. Um, but then I started talking to people, and I started understanding that they needed somebody that they could talk to as well, that they could hear those things like it does get better,
Mm-hmm.
it will get better. Like if I sat here and said, well, for 32 years I slept with a nightlight because I couldn't stop it, you, as young as you are, you're going to think, wow, 32 years from now, I'm still going to be doing the same thing I'm doing because that's what she did. Well, that's just ridiculous.
Right, right.
I don't know why these things hold on like that, but they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if people could just understand and absolutely have their own advocate or best friend or, whomever, every time I talk about it, oh, I feel better.
Mm.
Now that's a myth to me because I used to think if I didn't talk about it,
Right.
I'd feel better.
Right.
I didn't, so I would encourage everyone to, anybody can contact me. I will talk to you about it. It's just, I just think you have to have those people in your life that keep telling you the truth and you believe them, so a big support system is so critical.
I love that. And I love that not everybody goes through something and uses that experience then to help other people, but I love that you're doing that because, we need more people. I think especially in situations like this, we need someone that's going to believe us. We need someone that, because it's such a
Absolutely.
unique experience what you went through, that we need someone that knows what that's like to go through that and to not feel alone. And so I just am so appreciative of the work that you're doing in the world because we need more of that. I've been so blown away as I've done so many interviews over the last couple of weeks at just how everybody's using their experience to make the world a better place. And I'm so thankful for you, Sally, and the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And I think having granddaughters too has really pushed me out into, I always wanted to change, the stigma attached to rape and what people say and how they say it. And, those kind of things always bother me. But then when I got granddaughters, I just thought this world has got to be better when I leave than it is now.
Mm.
So how else are you going to get that done? You got to do it yourself,
That's right.
So
That's right.
I'm doing it.
Yes, you are. You're doing it for sure. Sally, thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your story and how you've made it through this far. And I think you've given our audience so many amazing takeaways. And also for those people that have never been through it themselves, but might know someone who's been through it. I think that what you've shared today can be so helpful for them to be the support system that they need. So thank you so much, Sally, for talking with me today.
You're welcome.
All
You are
right.
welcome.
Thank you. So everybody that wants to contact Sally Lushin, I got it right that time, and wants to wants to connect with her, be sure to check out the links in the show notes.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Breakthrough. Please visit our website at www.thebreakthroughshow.com. And be sure to join our After the Breakthrough community powered by Patreon. We look forward to seeing you next week. Same time, same place for another inspiring episode.